He had been a resident for such a long time that nobody paid him any mind. He was simply another shadow in the back of the shelter, an aged dog, quiet and unmoving. Day after day, families strolled past his enclosure. They cooed at lively puppies, engaged with spirited young dogs, and chuckled at wagging tails. But as for him, he no longer bothered to raise his head. It was as if he was certain that no one would ever choose him. His name was Max. There was a time when he had been powerful, a noble German shepherd with gleaming eyes and a self-assured stride. But the years had weathered him. His limbs were now stiff, his coat had thinned and lost its shine, and his eyes, once brimming with vitality, now held only a serene resignation. The shelter perpetually echoed with sound. Barking, whimpering, the conversation of visitors looking for their ideal canine companion. Max didn't bark anymore. He lay curled upon a threadbare blanket in the rearmost kennel, situated in the furthest corner of the facility, away from the sunlight and hopeful gazes. People didn't even look in his direction. They were seeking youth. They were seeking energy. They were seeking a future, not a relic of the past. And so, Max gave up. No more wags of the tail. No more sitting up. No more expectant eyes. Hope, after all, stings most when it is presented repeatedly, only to be refused every time. But everything was about to shift on a day that started just like all the others. The shelter unlocked its doors, and the atmosphere filled with noise. Into that clamor stepped an unexpected visitor, and she was not by herself. She was holding the hand of a little girl. And that girl was on the verge of noticing what everyone else had overlooked. Elena Foster had not intended to bring a dog home. Not on that day, or any other, for that matter. She had come to the shelter solely because her daughter, Lily, had asked over and over again. The kind of pleading that is accompanied by wide eyes, hopeful smiles, meticulously drawn pictures of puppies, and notes proclaiming, "Please, I will look after him. I promise." So, on a tranquil Saturday morning, Elena at last relented. "We're only going to look," she reminded Lily as they got out of the car. "We are not taking anyone home." "I know," Lily said, her voice effervescent with excitement. But her fingers squeezed Elena's hand firmly, just in case. The shelter was noisy, precisely as Elena had anticipated. Barks resounded down the corridors, with every kennel occupied by wagging tails and keen eyes. Dogs leaped against the metal enclosures, tongues lolling, paws extending, desperate to be noticed, to be selected. Lily's eyes twinkled as she went from one kennel to another, pausing to laugh at a golden retriever puppy attempting to gnaw on its own tail. Elena trailed behind, a mix of a smile and guardedness on her face. They went past row upon row of kennels, each one more boisterous than the one before. So much activity, so much liveliness. Then, Lily's pace slowed. She halted before a dark corner. Her small brow creased. "Mom," she murmured, pulling on Elena's sleeve. "Why isn't that one barking?" Elena moved to her side, looking into the shadowy kennel. There, barely discernible in the dimness, was Max, curled up, silent, and still. His head was on his front paws. He did not even glance up. And in that instant, something changed. The din of the shelter seemed to recede, because for the first time, someone had stopped. Lily pressed her face nearer to the kennel bars, her hands gripping the metal tightly. Her voice was softer now, almost hesitant. "Why is no one with him?" Elena knelt beside her, sweeping strands of hair from Lily's face as she looked inside. Max remained motionless. His frame was thin, his fur was patchy. His eyes were open but vacant, as if he were conscious only because he had no other option. Before Elena could reply, a shelter employee walked by and stopped, seeing where they stood. "Oh," she said softly, her voice dropping. "That's Max. He's been with us for a while." "How long?" Lily inquired, her little voice unexpectedly firm. The worker let out a sigh. "Over a year now. He's an older fellow. Came to us after his owner died. The family didn't want him." Lily blinked. "They just left him?" The woman gave a slow nod. "We've tried sharing his story online, putting up posters, even reducing the adoption fee, but most people are looking for younger dogs, puppies, dogs that will play and jump." Max just sort of melts into the background. Elena felt an emotion stir within her chest. It was not pity, but something more profound. She looked again at Max, at his still form, at the untouched bowl of food in the corner. "He doesn't even look up," Lily whispered. "He used to." the worker added softly. At first, he would wag his tail, sit up when someone passed by, but after months of being ignored, he just stopped trying. The silence that ensued hung in the air like a great weight. Lily knelt down slowly. I think he's still waiting, she said. Elena's throat grew tight. She wanted to say something, to offer an explanation, to move along. But all she could manage was to gaze into those weary, faded eyes. Eyes that had once held hope, and perhaps still had a little left. Lily did not get up immediately. She just sat there, right outside the bars, observing Max with a quiet intensity. Not as a child observes a pet, but as someone waiting to earn trust. Can I try? She asked gently, looking toward Elena. Try what? Elena said, her tone cautious. Lily held out a hand, her fingers small and unmoving, reaching just past the bars of the kennel. Elena was hesitant. Sweetheart, he might not approach. I know, Lily murmured. I just want him to know that I see him. Max did not raise his head. His ears did not so much as twitch, but his eyes, those profound, clouded brown eyes, moved. Just a fraction, just enough. He saw her. Seconds ticked by. Long, quiet seconds punctuated only by the distant barking that echoed through the shelter. Lily remained still. She did not speak again. Her hand stayed where it was, palm down, fingers loose. Then, the most subtle thing occurred. Max's nose twitched. He shifted, just a little. His bony body moved just enough for him to sniff the air near Lily's fingertips. Not near enough to make contact. Not quite, but it was something. A hint of curiosity. Elena's heart constricted. It was not much, but it was more than she had anticipated. The shelter worker observed quietly from a short distance away. He doesn't usually respond, she said softly. Most days he just sleeps. He won't even accept treats. Still kneeling beside her daughter, Elena felt a stirring deep within her. The ache of a connection just barely made, something delicate and transient. Lily turned slightly toward her. He's not mean, he's just scared. Elena nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving Max. He didn't move again, but in that single, hesitant sniff, Elena perceived something she had not seen in him before. A flicker, a thread, a sliver of hope that was still holding on. Elena remained silent, her gaze fixed on the fragile body curled behind the bars. There was something about Max that disturbed her, not out of fear, but with an ache, a quiet, aching sorrow just below the surface. The shelter worker drew a little nearer, her voice now softer, respecting the quiet that had fallen between them. He doesn't really react to people anymore, she explained gently. He's like this most of the day. Doesn't bark, doesn't eat much. We check on him, make sure he's all right, but he rarely moves unless we need him to. Lily looked up. Is he sick? No, sweetie. The woman answered, with kindness and honesty. Not really. He's just very, very tired. Elena's arms folded across her chest by instinct. Her brow creased as she glanced again at the food bowl in the corner, still full and untouched. The blanket under Max was too thin for the concrete. She wondered if he even noticed the cold, or if he had stopped feeling that as well. What happened before he was brought here? Elena asked, her voice now lower, tentative but sincere. The worker gave a slight shrug. We only know pieces. His record says he was given up by family after his owner passed away. Other than that, we're not certain. Elena didn't probe further. In a way, she already knew enough. She understood what it was like to be left behind, to continue to be present, only to be looked past. And seeing Max, it was like witnessing that feeling personified. Breathing, fading, waiting. She knelt next to Lily again, and they sat together in silence, not to break it, but to honor it. Max did not lift his head, but his eyes, heavy and empty, watched them, and although his body stayed still, something had changed. For the first time in a very long time, he was not alone. I'd like to meet him, Elena said softly. The shelter worker blinked. You mean, outside of the kennel? Elena nodded. Just for a few minutes. There was a brief pause, followed by a sigh. Okay, but I need to be truthful with you. Max hasn't been outside for weeks. We try to take him for walks, but he usually just stands there. He won't move. Elena shared a look with Lily, who offered a small, hopeful smile. Let's try anyway, Elena stated. The worker unlocked the gate with caution, entering with practiced care. Max didn't stir. His eyes tracked her, but his body remained curled up, as still as before. The leash was gently placed over his neck. There was no resistance, no reaction, as though he couldn't even feel it. Elena and Lily waited just outside the kennel, observing in silence. "Come on, buddy," the worker coaxed. "Let's go for a walk." Nothing. Then Elena moved forward and knelt by the entrance. Her voice was barely audible. "Max, it's okay." Lily knelt beside her, her voice bright and filled with something that had not yet been extinguished. "We'll go slow. You don't have to rush." The leash pulled taut as the worker gave a gentle tug, and then, so slowly it seemed almost unreal, Max shifted. His legs shook as he pushed himself to his feet. His body trembled from the exertion, each movement uncertain, as if every joint had forgotten how to support him. Elena gasped quietly, bringing a hand to her mouth. Max took a single step, then another, and then stopped. That was all. Just 2 steps, and still no one said a word. Because for a dog that had forgotten how to hope, 2 steps were a miracle. Max stood motionless just outside his kennel gate, his legs quivering beneath him, his breathing slow and labored. He didn't advance, but he didn't back away either. It was as if he were trapped between 2 realities, the one that had shattered him and the one he wasn't certain he was worthy of. Elena crouched down to his level, the leash held loosely in her hand. "You're okay, Max," she murmured. "We're not going to hurry you." Lily stood a step behind her mother, whispering, "You're doing great, Max, really great." The shelter worker looked on quietly, her arms folded loosely. "This is more than he's done in months," she remarked, her voice filled with surprise. Max adjusted his weight, his paws barely making a sound on the floor as he found his balance. His cloudy eyes darted from Elena to Lily and back. He did not appear hopeful. He looked doubtful, as if trying to understand what would happen next and whether he was permitted to want it. Elena's eyes never left his face. "He's been trying to survive," she said quietly to the worker. "But no one has given him a reason to try living again." The woman paused, then nodded. "Senior dogs are tough. It requires patience and a lot of compassion. They don't always recover." Elena looked down at Max, a tightness in her chest. "Maybe they don't need to recover," she answered. "Maybe they just need a soft place to land." The worker blinked. "Are you suggesting?" Elena rose slowly, still holding the leash. "I'm suggesting I want to take him home." Lily let out a small gasp. "Really?" Elena looked at her daughter, smiled tenderly, then turned back to Max. "He may be old, he may be tired, but he's not invisible. Not to us." The shelter worker let out a breath, a smile forming at the corner of her mouth. "Well, let's get the paperwork started." Max couldn't comprehend the words, but as Elena knelt again to look into his eyes, something in her tone caused his ears to twitch. And perhaps for the first time in a very long time, he allowed himself to believe that this might not be another fleeting hope. Maybe this time, someone meant it. The car journey was silent. Max was curled up on the back seat, his delicate frame resting on a folded blanket Elena had taken from the trunk. He didn't whine, didn't stir, didn't show any signs of panic. He just lay there, eyes half closed, breathing slowly and shallowly, as if uncertain if any of this was real. Elena checked on him in the rearview mirror every few seconds. With each glance, her heart ached a little more. He appeared so small back there, so weary, so vulnerable. Lily sat next to him, her legs crossed, her hands in her lap. She didn't speak either, but occasionally she would lean forward slightly, just to be sure Max was still there, still breathing, still all right. When they finally pulled into the driveway, the late afternoon sun had cast a soft, golden light. Elena got out first, walking around to open the back door. She knelt beside Max and whispered, "We're home, buddy." Max raised his head slightly, his ears twitching at the new sensations. He didn't move, but he didn't pull back when Elena gently reached under his chest to help him out of the car. His legs trembled as he stood. He was hesitant. Then, slowly, he took a step forward. The small, fenced yard was peaceful. The house was cozy and serene. A bowl of fresh water was on the porch beside a new dog bed that Lily had chosen. Elena opened the door and stepped back, giving Max room. He stopped at the entrance. There were no metal bars, no concrete floors, no barking, only quiet. He turned his head to look at her. "You're safe now," she whispered, and Max crossed the threshold. The first thing Max did was not lie down. He walked slowly, unsteadily, past the water bowl, past the soft bed that waited by the fireplace. He roamed through the quiet home, sniffing corners, exploring the silence. His paws made almost no noise on the wooden floor. Then, without any warning, he stopped in front of Elena and gently laid his head on her leg. Elena froze, her breath catching. She lowered herself to the floor, her eyes level with his. Her hand found its way to his coarse fur, stroking him gently. "You're home now, Max," she murmured. Behind her, Lily knelt and carefully put her arms around his middle. Max did not flinch. He did not move away. He allowed them to be close. That night, he curled up on the dog bed near the fireplace, his body finally at ease, his breathing soft and even. His tail moved once, just a slow, lazy wag, but it was enough. Because for a dog who had been forgotten, he had been seen. One little girl had asked, "What about him?" And in doing so, had changed his entire world. Max wasn't a broken dog. He was a dog who just needed someone to believe in him again. And now, after so many days of silence, after so many nights alone, his waiting was over. He was finally home.